Alright everyone, in this video I want to talk about what to do when your code goes wrong. At least I want to give you some pointers in the right direction. So it's easy for your code to go wrong. It's very easy to, if you're copying the code from me or from someone else, it's very easy to make a mistake. It's even easier to make a mistake when you're trying to figure it out on your own. I make tons of mistakes when I code. It's just part of the process. And it's so much part of the process that software developers have a name for it. They call errors in your code bugs. And the process of trying to find those errors is called debugging. So kind of getting rid of the bugs is debugging. And the biggest problem in debugging is trying to find where the problem is. So debugging is quite easy, relatively speaking, when your code is small, because there's not a lot of places to look. But as the code starts to get bigger and bigger, it starts to scale up, bugs get harder and harder to find. It becomes more of a problem of finding a needle in a haystack. So I've set up a problem in this. Obviously, I know what the problem is. This is a little bit fake. But I'm going to show you how I would find this problem, how I would diagnose it. And then hopefully you can kind of use this method when something isn't going right for you. So let me tell you what the problem is in this code. Firstly, I'm just going to start it off. And here comes the ghost. And if you noticed, it attacked me straight away. It didn't hover around, it didn't moan. It just went straight in for the kill. And here it comes again. It's straight in for the kill. Now, at this point in the course, I programmed it to hover around and moan a little bit. But it's not doing that. It's not hovering around. It's not moaning. So let's just kind of double check that again. Yeah, it's not hovering around. It's not moaning. It's just coming straight in for the kill. So what's the problem? Well, the first thing to think here is I wrote some code to make it hover. Well, what was that code called? Well, it was called hover. So let's go take a look at that code. So we're in the ghost. And there is hover. So let's just pull that out so that we can take a look at it. Now, there are generally two things that can go wrong here. If it's not hovering, it's either because hover itself is not working, so there's something wrong with this code inside hover. Or, you've always got to be aware of this second problem, hover itself isn't getting called. What does that mean? It means that the rest of the code is never sending a request to hover for it to kick into action. It's not getting triggered. It's not getting started. Right? So if we have an analogy, suppose you've got a doctor who's on call. And so if it's an emergency, you send a message through his beeper. Now let's suppose that all of his patients are just getting sicker and sicker because he's not treating them. Well, there's one of two problems that's going on here. Either the doctor himself is treating the patients, but he isn't any good. Or for some reason, he isn't getting the signal that his patients need treatment, so he's not even showing up. So those are kind of the two problems that we have here. Either hover's not getting the signal, so it's not even initiating, it's not even starting, it's not even kicking up. Or it's starting, but there's something wrong with the code inside. So the first thing we have to decide is which of those is the case. So I'm going to give you a little trick for diagnosing this. Go to sounds, choose a sound, and then just pick a sound. Doesn't really matter which one it is. I'll pick trumpet. As long as it's not one of the sounds we're already using. So I don't want the moan. I don't want anything that sounds like a moan or anything that sounds like the tip-tap of the wizard's feet. So something completely different. So we've got this trumpet. That sounds good. Okay. And go back to code. And what we're going to do is I'm going to grab this start sound of trumpet. And I'm just going to pop it in here. Why? Because I want to find out whether hover is even being called. So if the rest of the code isn't calling hover, then this will never even start and I'll never hear the trumpet. If, on the other hand, the rest of the code is calling hover, but the code inside hover isn't working, then what I should hear is a trumpet sound. But then I don't get what I want. But at least I'll know that it's been called. So if I hear that trumpet, then I know that hover's been called. If I don't hear the trumpet, then hover hasn't been called. So let's try that out. Okay, so I heard the trumpet, so I now know that hover has been called. Okay, so pull it out. So now, the next thing I want to know is whether this code here is even activating. So it's all protected, it's all wrapped inside this if-then block. So maybe Scratch isn't getting inside the if-then block. Maybe it's just skipping over this. Maybe it's going if ghost visibility equals visible, then blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's saying to itself, no, ghost visibility doesn't equal visible, so I'm not even going to do that. So what I'm going to try to find out is whether it's getting inside this if-then block. And I'm going to do that by putting the trumpet sound inside the if-then block. So now when I run it, it's not going to trumpet just because we got into hover. We're going to have to get all the way into the if-then block before it sounds the trumpet. So let's try that out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so there was no trumpet sound there. So what that tells me is that it's not getting inside this block. So that tells me something very clear. I know the problem has to be in this line here. Why? Because the code got to here. When trumpet was here, I heard the trumpet. But when trumpet was there, I didn't hear the trumpet. So that means it's not getting past this line here. It's not getting inside the if-then block. Why not? Well, it must be failing this visibility check. If ghost visibility equals visible, then do all this. It must be the case that it's saying no, ghost visibility doesn't equal visible. Now, if I look at variables, I've got ghost visibility right here. And let me just pull it out so you can see it. So ghost visibility is invisible at the beginning of the game. Now it's visible. Whoa, whoa. And now it's invisible again. So that seems to be working. Let's look again. Okay. It's visible. So why doesn't it pass this test here? Well, I can see. If you look at the way that it's spelled, it's incorrect. It's spelt with an A, and over here it's spelt with an I. Now, one thing you might think here is, well, what's the right way of spelling it in English? The answer is Scratch doesn't care. Scratch doesn't care how you spell it, as long as you spell it consistently. The problem here is not that you've spelled it wrong in English. That's a problem in your English class. It's not a problem in your coding class. The problem is that you spelled it in two ways at two different times. So over here you spelled it with an I, over here it's spelled with an A. Similarly, if you see where it's set, it says here, so at some point in the setup, when the ghost appears, at first he's invisible, but then after it shows him, it sets the ghost visibility to visible, and it's spelled it with an I. So what happens is his value here is visible with an I, visible. And then this says, hey, if ghost visibility is visible, then blah, blah, blah. But it's not visible, it's visible. So these don't match. So when it checks to see, hey, is ghost visibility visible with an A? The answer is no. It's not visible with an A. It's visible with an I. Now that might seem like ridiculously nitpicky and pedantic and fussy. Well, that's the way computers are. They want you to do everything exactly right. So if you misspell it, then it's gonna fail a test that it should pass. So now if I change this to I, now it should pass, because if the ghost visibility is set to visible, then this is going to go, hey, is ghost visibility set to visible? And the answer is going to be yes. So let's try that out. Invisible here. Ghost appears, it's equals. And did you hear the trumpet a couple of times there? So now it's getting inside this code. You also heard the moaning. Now you didn't hear the moaning before when it just attacked straight away. Now you're hearing the moaning, so we're now getting the hover effect. Let me get rid of the trumpet, because that's not supposed to be there. That's just there to help us debug. And now let's play it again. And we should hear moaning, and we should see it circling a little bit before it attacks. There we go. Good. So that's the problem solved. We can throw this away. So what did we learn? The main thing that we learned, the most important thing, is how to use a sound effect to mark a part of the code to see where the scratch is reaching that part. And that helps to flag which parts of the code it's getting into and which parts of the code, for some reason, it's not getting into. That's the most important thing. A secondary lesson that we learned is spelling matters. It doesn't matter whether you spell it right, it only matters whether you spell it consistently. So make sure when you're spelling things, you always spell them the same way. So that's the second thing that we learned. A third little trick that we learned is show your variables on the screen when you want to check that they're activating and changing value in the way that you want them to. And just put them on the screen and watch them go. Okay, I think that's everything for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for listening, and if you find this video useful, please hit like and subscribe.